Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our Walk in God's Purpose podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Lorna, and we also have Monique. So, welcome back, Monique.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Okay. So, for those of you who don't know, Monique has been missing for 3 weeks. Boo! Yes, I'm just kidding. And we both have been missing for 2 weeks. For those of you who are keeping up, and I know you miss us. We miss you too. But
We-
as we said in our very first episode, I guess, introducing you to our ministry, that we both work full time at demanding jobs. So there will be time when we will have to miss a week or two because of work obligation. And we had to for the past 2 weeks because of that. So, but we're back and we're happy to be back.
Okay. And what do we have in store for the people?
Okay, so we ended the last episode with a special co-host or special guest, and I want to thank her so much. Uh,
Thank you.
yes, thank you, Roxanne. So that episode, we looked at singleness after marriage, which could be via death of a spouse or divorce. So I thought it would be fitting to follow that up looking at step families, or what is more commonly known as, since recent times, blended families.
Uh-huh.
Because those who do remarry and have children will be a part of a blended family. So just to kind of touch on that, because that is a reality in our churches. And I think it is important to acknowledge those family types as well.
Yeah, agreed.
So the first thing I want to start off with is just giving some simple definition of the different types of blended families. So you have the simple blended families, and that is step families that include two adults and one of them is a parent. So one of the individuals come to the relationship with a child. Then you have complex blended families where both of the adults or parents come to the relationship with children. So both bring their own biological or adopted children into the new family. And then you have the hybrid step family, where when they come together to form this new family, they have a biological child between them. So they may have children from their first marriages, but then they also have a child together, a biological child, or even adopt a child together within this new family system. So that is called the hybrid uh, step families. So based on that, those definition, we know that Jesus was a part of a blended family.
Mm-hmm.
And if our Savior was a part of a blended family, as I said, I think it's important to discuss that type of family and to take away any stigma that is associated with that type of family. So, yes. So I want to start off first by just discussing some of the challenges that is associated with being a part of a blended family. And one of the first issues that causes challenges within this family structure is having unrealistic expectations. And the people tend to come to these type of family situations and compare them to the nuclear family system that they were originally a part of, or just a nuclear family system that they see in society. And they
Uh,
expect this new family system to be a copy of that one, which isn't the case, and it's not going to be like that. So if you go in it expecting it to be exactly like that and having these unrealistic expectations, it is
it
going
will
to
fail
go
to
again.
fail. It
Yes,
is going to fail,
yes.
or
It is going
or
to,
at least have a lot of challenges.
yes. And I always tell people when you are a part of a blended family and you're having this expectation of nuclear family expectation, that is trying to put a square in a circle, like two different things. So having those unrealistic expectations can cause challenges. Another thing is having to merge different family cultures and identity. And when I say culture, I don't mean like, oh, you're from a different country. I mean, every person has a family culture.
Right.
So Monique and I are both Jamaicans, but we both have different family cultures because we're from different families. So when I talk about family culture, it's not so much so like your race or the country that you're born or your ethnicity. I'm talking about literally the family that you grew up in. So even if you
The
have
values that you guys created, or the
exact
traditions that you guys created.
exactly, and that is going to be different. Even if you have everything else in common, the fact that you're from different families, you're going to have to merge those different family cultures. So for step families, you have already merged with your first family. So that has even compounded the merging.
Yeah.
So you have already kind of created this new family culture from both of your original families, family of origin.
Yeah.
And then you put it together, and then now you're going to have to do that again. So it kind of up the trying to navigate how to do everything. And it talks about like when two families come together, as you said, they come from different households with different values and belief systems sometimes. And again, even if you are both of the same denomination, there are some values and belief systems that may be different, not just in a religious sense. And you have different traditions and different ways of doing things. So just being cognizant of that and know that it's going to take time to have that solid routine and things that are specific to this new family construction down, and give yourself time. And the third one is establishing new bonds of loyalty. And we see this a lot with the children. It's almost as if they feel as if they're being disloyal if they even like
The
their,
step parent.
yes. And this is more so, we see it more, well, you see it even with the death of a parent, but I think it is more, what's the word I'm looking for? It is more intense when the parent is still alive. That guilt, as if you're doing you're doing your parent a disservice if you like your step parent. And to be honest, some parents play into that and really do make off comments if the child says something about like the step parent, especially if it's the step if that step parent, what am I trying to say, is the same gender as them, makes it worse, and they'll make off comments sometimes, knowing that that can bring a feeling of guilt in the child. So we just have to be very careful. Do not be petty. I know sometimes it hurts, but don't put your children in the middle of things. And I always say, just love your child more than you dislike anyone else. Whether that,
it makes sense, yes.
yeah. So just establishing new bonds of loyalty. And what I mean by that is being loyal to the new family structure, the new family system, does not mean that you're going to be disloyal to the old one, but just not be disrespectful to the new system. So work on building up this new family And that does not negate what was shared in the original family system. And you can still love your parents from that family system. You can still love that, what you had there, but have a respect for what you're building over here. And no one should make anyone feel guilty about trying to establish new bonds in the new family system. And then another, or you were going to say something?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to clarify this point. So you said establish loyalty. Who is establishing the loyalty? Is it only the child that is establishing this new bond of loyalty, or is it also the ex-spouse, whether it's the husband or the wife? Are they establishing loyalty to this new family system as well? Which one is doing?
Oh, good question. And it's everyone who is in the family. So
Okay.
it is the parents. So
Mhm.
some might feel that building this bond with this new husband, and especially in the case, so for children, they tend to feel more guilty when they're in this new family system and the parent is still alive. Because remember, blended
Yeah.
families can come from either the death of a spouse or a divorce.
Right.
So for the child, they tend to feel more guilt that they're being disloyal when the other parent is still alive
Uh-huh.
because they're there. For the spouse, they
Uh,
tend to feel more disloyal if they're building this new bond when the spouse has died.
okay. Gotcha.
But it can happen in either scenario. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but both, everyone within the new family system should be working together to build the bonds within that family system. So the parents should be working to be connected. The stepchild and the step parent should be working on building bonds. Parent and the child should continue to build the bonds that they have. So
Mm-hmm.
everyone should be working on establishing that connection amongst each other within the new family system.
How about the ex who is not directly into the family? How can that ex-spouse create loyalty to this new family that technically they're not a part of, except for the child being a part of
Right.
it? How can the parents support or be loyal to this family as well, that ex-spouse?
Okay. Good question
Mm-hmm.
again. And I kind of touched on it indirectly. One is
Mm-hmm.
just don't be petty.
Right.
And for those of you who don't know what petty mean, this urban slang, is kind of being childish in a situation and making things worse than it has to be
Mm-hmm.
and nitpicking at everything. So one, if your child is just being supportive of this new family system, uh,
Mm-hmm.
if they're trying to do something, it's like co-parenting. You just have to work along with each other, talk with each other, be civil with each other. Don't be mean, rude, and disrespectful to your ex-spouse and to their new partner.
Right.
Don't try to put a wedge, a gap, or try to
Turn the child
turn,
against.
thank you, try to turn the child against their step parent.
Uh-huh.
Don't say things about the step parent with the child. Don't discuss negative things with your child and their step parent, uh, or even with their parent, your ex-spouse. You
Right.
don't need to be discussing things with the child,
To try to get the child on your side
trying to
or
get the child on your side.
Mhm.
So just
Okay.
being supportive and respectful. And if everyone gets along, and you don't have to get along perfectly because it depends on how the relationship ended,
Yeah.
but just being civil and respectful, the more everyone is on the same page, the better that is going to be for the children involved.
Okay. All right.
And if you
Thank you.
love, yeah, and if you love your child, you'll do what you know is going to lead to the best development for them.
Mhm.
So, and
Next chapter at
next
blended.
chapter,
Yeah.
uh, then there is another challenge, another factor that contributes to the challenges is there may be ambiguity or uncertainty regarding the
Mhm.
step-parent role. So in some case, maybe the biological parent expect the step-parent to play a more parent-type role, and the child might expect the step-parent to play a more friend role, or the parent might expect the step-parent to just be there and don't play a parental role at all. Like
Or a
it's my child,
disciplinary role. They
right?
don't,
All
they,
right. Or a disciplinary role. And the
Mhm.
step parent might think, okay, I'm a parent. We are one family, so
Mhm.
I can discipline as well.
Right.
So that definitely needs to be discussed
Mhm.
before they get into a relationship and decide to blend their families. Like, what role am I expected to play? And if they're both comfortable with the role, and it is important to get feedback from the child as well as much as possible. Caveat: you're not just going to take whatever the child says, uh,
Mhm.
but it is okay to get their perspective or get their say in the matter. But that doesn't mean you're going to go with what they say, because they might say, "I just want a friend role," but you both
Mhm.
think we're both adults, we're both married, we're both trying to raise this child properly. So we both, as adults, want the all of us to play a parental disciplinary role. So
Mhm.
you can ask the child their opinion, but then say, okay, we respect that, but this is how we see it, and this is how we're going to move forward. But just giving them a voice and letting them feel a part of, and then you explain why it is that we're going to go this route, and you could probably compromise as well. Uh,
Yeah.
let them feel as if they are a part of the decision making.
Let them know that they are a part of the decision making. Even
Right.
if their decision isn't the final decision, they are.
Exactly. At least they got to voice it.
Yeah.
So just to make that clear, because a lot of people they I don't think they think about it, or they assume that they're on the same wavelength, and sometimes they're not even in the same book, and they think they're on the same page and they're in two different books.
Mm.
So they definitely need to figure that out. Don't assume that you're on the same page. Don't assume that the other person is reading your mind and know what your expectation of their role is. So make that clear. And then the final thing, and there's a lot more, but this is not an exhaustive list. I'm not going to mention every single thing under the sun that might make blended family challenges. I just pick some that I think are worth noting. And the
Mhm.
final one that I want to talk about is that there is just simply a lot of moving parts when it comes on to a blended family that have to come to an agreement, particularly as it relates to children who are involved. So essentially, if both parents divorced, and you could essentially have two sets of family. You could have your mom could remarry and you have your mom and your stepdad. Your dad could remarry and you have your dad and your stepmom. And all these people have to come together and figure
Mhm.
out how they're going to do this and what is in the best interest of the child. That that is a lot of moving parts to fit
A
together.
lot. Yeah.
And both of those step parents may come to that their respective new relationship with children as well. So then you have to think about the step parent ex-spouse.
Mhm.
Because if you're in a household with your child and your partner's child from a previous marriage, you want there to be what's the word I'm looking for? similarity in how you are rearing the children in this family. So you want to be on the same wavelength. One cannot they can't be around the same age, and one has a curfew of 12 o'clock and the other has one at 7 o'clock.
No favoritism.
No favoritism. That is not going to work. So
Mhm.
with that, in this new family system, you have to come together and see, okay, what's best for all the children involved? And now you have to work with your ex-spouse to see, okay, what's best for my child? And your new partner has to work with their ex-spouse because that's their child too, or their children. So it's just a lot of moving parts to try to figure out if you want
Is,
to do this right.
is this a moving part? Because I had a friend, he's a grandpa, and his wife remarried, and she was having the grandkids call her new husband grandpa. And that made my friend, who is the biological grandpa, upset. So is that another moving part that they have to, that complicates things? Grandparents and
Oh,
every
you have dig the new new oh yes, that is definitely another moving part because we're just talking about the
mom
parents.
and dad, yeah.
You have to think about the grandparents now. Like,
Mhm.
whose house are we going for Thanksgiving? And do I call my new stepmom grandparents? Are they my grandpa and grandma? Uh, when it's Christmas time, am I expected to get a gift for
Gift
them?
from them, yeah.
Because remember, this new family system now is going to take turns
Mm-hmm.
going to their family. So one turn might be if you live with your biological, say, dad, and
Mm-hmm.
his new wife, which is your stepmom. They're going to take turns going to her family and your dad's family. So at one
Right.
point, you might have to go to her family. And how do you navigate that? Do I get a present? Do I not get a present? Like,
Yeah.
so
Or am I spending Thanksgiving with dad today this month and then I go to my biological mom, or am I staying with the nuclear family? And then the kids have to make that decision, and that's going to be pretty tough on the child. Do I
yes.
go with dad or do I go with mom? Or yeah, can get
So
complicated.
it can get very complicated. Sometimes
Mhm.
sometimes when I'm discussing this, I get on the
Mhm.
whiteboard and I draw stick figures to like to represent the different family or the different
Mhm.
household and the grandparents and the step. And when
Mhm.
you look at that, it's just a big
It's
matrix.
the world. Yep.
So, and I think that is one of the most difficult things to navigate. And then everyone
Mhm.
has to put away their hurt and again their
Mhm.
pettiness from grandparents to parents to aunts and uncles, and what
Mhm.
is in the best interest of the child.
Yeah.
So that is definitely a part of the grandparents is definitely part of the moving parts. Uh,
Mhm.
in that situation in particular, it might be best to discuss with the biological people involved how they would feel about doing that,
Mhm.
and if it is really going to hurt them,
Mhm.
maybe not go that route. And also, I don't want to sound judgmental or anything, but on the flip side of that too, you can't be too petty about
A child seeing
a
grandpa.
child, yes. So the family, each individual family has to come together and make that decision. For some family, it might be this, for some family, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
The bottom line is what is in the best interest of the child, what is going to lead the child to have the best outcome possible.
Mhm.
Do I need to just put away my feelings, or and what is the motive behind letting them call this new one grandpa? Like, we don't know all the intricacies,
Yeah.
but if everybody bottom line is what is in the best interest of the child, and it's not about me. Think about that as your motive. Moving forward, I think that is the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we have looked at some of the challenges, don't want to just leave it there like, okay, step families, very hard, goodbye. We are going to look at some of the ways that you can actually overcome these challenges. Like step families can work. It takes a lot of work, it does, but it can work. If people are willing to put in the effort and put in the time, it can work. And as we said, Jesus was a part of a blended family, so we know it can work. So some of the ways to help overcome some of these challenges is one, we talked about this earlier, give up the unrealistic expectations. Don't expect a blended family to fit and look and feel like a nuclear family. It talks about how some individuals expect immediate feelings of love and affection. That is not going to be.
It's not going to happen overnight. Takes
Thank
time.
you. It's not going to happen overnight this time.
Yeah.
It's a different dynamic.
Yeah.
So just give yourself time, especially as it relates to the step parent and the stepchild. Give them time to bond and to develop that feeling of love and affection. So it's going to be different. Know that it is going to be different. Know that it is going to take time and effort and work, and be willing to put the work in. Don't expect things to happen overnight. The second is to just have clear roles and boundaries again. Everyone should know what the expectation of their role is. And this has to be agreed upon. Am I going to play a disciplinary role? Is it you're going to discipline your child, I discipline my child? That has to be established before you get into the relationship and decide to go as far as marriage and blend the families without talking about what are the roles and the boundaries.
But is that a good alternative? Just your opinion. Is that, would you recommend any parent to do that? I discipline mine, you discipline yours.
No, I do not. That is what happens 90% of the time, and I do not agree with that. And I try to tell people like that does not work. Me personally, what I think is the best way to move forward with that is we have this new family, we have children within the family. Even before we decide to get married, the adults need to sit down, decide, okay, how are we going to do it? Okay, we're going to be a family, so we're going to behave like a unit and behave like a family. Once that is established, then just as with the nuclear family, what should be done, which is not even done in the nuclear family, but should be done, is decide how we are going to parent. So as the new family, we decide, okay, what are the rules? What are the consequences of breaking the rules? What are the expectations within the family? What do we expect from all the children in the family, including mine, yours, and ours? So just having that established, what are we going to do? And in my opinion, if we have already established the roles, the rules, the consequences, and that has been discussed with all the children involved, so you have family meetings and the children know that, okay, these are the rules. If you break the rules, these are the consequences. This is what we expect from you. If a child breaks a rule and it has already been established between both parents, the parent and the step parent, that this is a consequence, I don't see why it has to be the biological parent who said something, who says something like, we have discussed this. Yeah, we discussed it in family meeting. This is a rule, this is a consequence. Why it has to come out of your biological mom mouth or your biological dad mouth? Why can't it come out of the step parent's mouth?
Mhm.
So that is how I see it. And some
Now,
other ways is to be flexible when you are combining the family. Like you might have done this in the first family. Say you used to have family meetings on Thursday, but now you're blended and your stepbrother has to go to football or baseball or basketball practice on Thursday night. Well, maybe we have to have family meeting on Wednesday night. So
right.
just being able to be flexible and adaptive to
The new.
new routine and rules and everything. Having a strong support system, support from multiple sources, such as you talked about former spouse, support from your
Mhm.
former spouse, your
Mhm.
friends, relatives, and the broader community. Uh, Blended families need a lot of support. Like we said, we went through the challenges, they need a lot of support.
Mhm.
Uh, Positive co-parenting relationship. So positive, you're the both bio parent and step parents need to come together and co-parent properly, co-parent with respect, uh, not being petty again, and doing what is best for the child. And do not show favoritism along biological lines. So going back to open and clear communication and discussing what is going to happen. Like if there's rule and discipline, that should be fair across the board. You can't have one set of rules for one set of children and one for one set of children. Or I can do this with my child, but I'm not going to do it with your child, especially if they're all living in the same household.
Yeah.
You can't do it. And we see how that happened. We see the result of that with Joseph.
Mhm.
Uh, and Jacob. So we know how that ends. So do not have favoritism, and particularly, as I said, along biological lines. So we are about to
How
wrap
the.
it up.
Oh.
You had something?
No, I was going to bring more up. I was going to ask how about those hybrid families. How do they navigate with this one child? I guess the Joseph were,
Mm.
but we'll do that next week. Keep
No,
going.
no, no. We can definitely talk about that because I'm
Mm,
actually glad you bring that up because even even if there does not tend to be favoritism along
mm,
biological lines for your own child because
mhm.
you realize that you have to treat the stepchild and your child the same. What inevitably happens, so I'm really glad you bring it up, is when those two people
Have a
have a
child.
child,
Mhm.
and now this is a manifestation of
Of their
their
love.
love.
Mhm.
That child is typically favored
Without them even knowing.
without
Only the
them
kids
even
notice.
knowing it or
Yeah.
noticing it. And this is not something that is done intentionally. This is
Yeah.
just a natural part of human nature. Now we
Mhm.
have created this new little thing that is a
Mhm.
representation of our love in this new
Mhm.
relationship. So just naturally, that new child that is a part of both of them tends to be favored.
Yeah.
So people just have to be cognizant of that, and you are going to feel some, I guess, well, not greater affection. You will, it's, it is
It's
going to
human
feel
nature.
different.
Yeah, it's going to be different.
It is going to be different.
Yeah.
And we're not going to pretend as if it is not and sugarcoat it
Mhm.
because that is reality.
Yeah.
And even if people don't want to admit it, it is reality. And like I
Mhm.
said, sometimes they don't even recognize it.
Yeah.
But that is going to be a natural outgrowth of both of you creating this new child.
Mhm.
So just being cognizant of that, knowing that it is going to happen, and don't beat yourself up. It's natural. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Now you know it's going to happen. Take steps to make sure that when
It
you
doesn't
catch
affect the other
yourself,
kids. Yeah.
yeah, just take a step back and like, okay, maybe not do this.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yeah. So we want to wrap up with a couple of things. The Bible doesn't speak specifically about like blended family, but we can infer from some of the things that are said in the Bible, how we can be within step family and maybe how God feels about step families or blended families. So in Romans 8:15 and Ephesians 1:5, God calls himself our Father and us is adopted children. So as Christian step parents, we should model love and the tenderness that God has toward us as his adopted children to our stepchildren. So God has adopted us and he treats us just as how he would treat his quote unquote biological children, Israel. So we should do the same if we get into a position to be a step parent to a child. And another thing I want to touch on is that Jesus was known as the carpenter's son, which is Joseph, his stepdad's profession. And the fact that Jesus took on his stepfather's profession and the fact that everyone knew him as a carpenter's son, I think that speaks to the relationship that Jesus had with Joseph. And that to me says it was a very good one.
Yeah.
And finally, Jesus said, a house divided will not stand. In Matthew 12:25. So parents and step-parents, again, have to agree on boundaries and consequences when they're co-parenting children. And any disagreement should not be done in front of the children. That should be done behind closed door, figure it out, and then come back as a family, have a family meeting and discuss the result or the decision with the child.
That last one should be in any home,
Yeah,
nuclear or
any home,
blended.
yeah. And honestly, a lot of these things should be across any household.
Yeah.
So that is it for our little talk and on step families. Of course, there's so much more that we can say, but we do try to keep these episodes to about half an hour. So that is it. Any final thoughts or question, Monique, before we go?
Well, what's coming up next? What can our viewers expect next from us in this family?
So I think next we're going to talk about effective communication. There's this little mantra about how to make relationships work, and it's communication, communication, communication.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to do. Communication, communication, communication.
Yeah, you spoke a lot about that tonight and how to make blended family work. So we're going to give them a full 30 minutes on just communication.
That is right. So again, we missed you guys. We miss you, but we're going to take a break again because next week is next week is Thanksgiving in the USA. So we will be taking a break for a week, and then we'll see you talk to you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.